Cool, man. Let's kick off. So awesome to have you here. Appreciate you jumping in and joining me on the podcast today. And the last time we connected was off the back end of two of your really, really powerful events, the Bridge Experience and Extreme Leadership, which were insane. And anyone that's listening today, I'm going to do my best to extract as much gold as I can from Preston. But if you haven't attended those two events in particular, which are like I'd say the foundation of Preston and Alexi's coaching, they're the most insane events that I've attended in terms of the intensity of it. Deep work. I think I feel like the people that get the most out of it are people that are really in touch with a desire to go deeper spiritually, and then are looking for a way to tangibilize their real life experience. But I mean, anyone that shows up in that room is going to be stretched in incredible ways.
1000%, man. 1000%. Yeah. Appreciate you. Thank you for showing up for this. Thank you for saying yes to whatever was calling you forward and making it tangible enough where other humans can receive the transmission that is deciding to come through at this moment. And so that's really, really big, really, really huge. And I'm grateful and have a huge congratulations for you and to you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And this is one of the first 10 episodes. So the reason that I've brought you onto the podcast is because you've played a part in my growth, helping me extract and look deeper. I think one of the biggest things for me was not shaming my ego while at the same time being aware of it. And I think that's a really, for me, that was a really difficult balance to get, because the way in which you facilitate growth at those two events is mega intense. And I feel like it puts a magnifying glass on your insecurities, which for me was being insecure. So it's like magnifying glass, really zooming in and bringing to the surface how much I was auditing myself and being in my head and thinking about everything. And it just made that 1,000 times more obvious. I probably didn't get that realization until a few months after the events, but it really had me look at my own deservability and self-worth in a whole other way. And that's what I want to ask some questions around to kick off the podcast today, because it's something that I can tell you really embody a sense of grounded confidence and pride and love of yourself and self-worth. And it's very unique. It's very unique, and which is crazy, because it's something that I think every human deserves to experience. Something I'm still working on. I'm sure you are as well, but the degree of groundedness that you've been able to settle into within yourself and your knowing of yourself and the way that you show up authentically is really cool. And I want to share like a really funny experience of me witnessing some of your content that I feel like was the highlight of the highlight of your embodiment and ownership of self, which was someone had obviously sent you a message, and it had probably happened more than once with like a clairvoyant or someone that was telling you what your future's going to look like. And then you bit back with either like a video or a series of stories on Instagram where you were just saying, this is my life, and great that you've got these skills to tap in, or you feel like you know what's going on for me, but you have no right to tell me what's going on in my life. And in a arguably sensitive kind of space, for you to be able to own that message and own yourself, for me, is a great example of your grounded certainty, your ability to show up with authentically. Because I've had people say that to me, and I've thought the same thing, but I haven't said the same thing.
No, it's really important that we understand, and let's even just ground like my philosophy, which is not even philosophy, it's just a way of life that I don't do too much thinking about per se, and yet it's just a part of my being. Now, one could say, oh, you did a lot of thinking about it, and therefore now it's a part of your being and it's automatic. Who knows? But what I will say,
do you know, like, Because I really want to understand, like, was there a switch for you in your life where you went from not feeling authentic and fully centered in who you were to like a big level up, and then on the journey of continual growth? Or was it something that you always found quite natural?
Both. I would say that I struggled as a recovering people pleaser for many, many, many years. And yet, even if you're a people pleaser, you still have moments of authenticity where you are authoring the next moment and being present to the presence. Now, in between those moments, there was many times where, based on the traumas that I had experienced as a child, when anything that sort of looked like that trauma would show up, this other aspect of me would come forward and not be as authentic as it wanted to be. And so it was like this battle between the higher self and the wounded self. And the wounded self kept winning out until I made a decision to begin to celebrate, acknowledge, and bring forward all the ways in which I was being the most authentic version of myself daily. And so through that celebration and that joy and that acknowledgement, because a lot of people in our spiritual community, in personal development and all of that stuff, they beat themselves up so much that they literally beat themselves out of their birthright and the frequency from which they were born into, right? We're born high vibing. And through social conditioning and training and beliefs and interpretations and traumas and schooling and all of these things, we become less and less like what our true nature is. And so what I've been living from for the last 10 years is closer to my true nature. Am I done? No. Do I believe that I am a unique emanation of the Most High? Yes. Do I believe that I am one of the ways in which God reflects itself and reveals itself? Abso-freaking-lutely. And so I trust whatever's there and present, which is why I don't need scripts and things of that nature. When I go to talk, it's like, game on. Let's see what wants to come through, because there's 4 levels of consciousness: to me, by me, through me, as me. And the reality is that instead of this ladder that I just showed you, it should just be a circle, because that's what's happening. Some days, some minutes, I'm in to me, which is victim consciousness. The world is happening to me. I'm at the effect of. Some days I'm in by me, and I'm like, yo, I create my own reality. I'm gonna make this happen. 2 hours later, I'll be in through me, where I'm like, use me, spirit. I'm a vessel for your message. 2 hours after that, I may be in as me, or I'll jump right back to me. And so understanding, right? Because this is the key to some of this. And we talk about this in Bridge. Awareness proceeds choice. We become conscious choice makers when we bring awareness to where we are operating from. It's in real estate, they say location, location, location. And it's the same as it pertains to being congruent with what is our God-given gifts, talents, and abilities.
Beautiful. That's really, really well said. And I love the idea and the acceptance and ownership of the constant oscillation between the different stages of consciousness or levels of consciousness. So obviously you spend more time than, like you said, do I have room for growth? Yes. Do I see myself as someone that's vibing higher and being more authentic than the average person? Yes, also. Yep. So obviously then you're spending more time in as me and more time in through me.
There we go.
What practices do you do to, whether it's a reactive something when it pops up? You mentioned I go into joy and I recognize the times in which I'm actually showing up authentically to then give myself that support and love and nurture.
About 11 years ago, I did a mushroom ceremony in Joshua Tree, and I went pretty far. I went off the deep end as far as what most people would be probably willing to go. And in that ceremony, which was hours and hours and hours, I began to see the face of God in everything. There was nothing that was not God. Boogers, hair, dirt, rocks, trees, everything. Everything was God, including me. And so I came out of that ceremony, and just like I do anytime I do go into ceremony, which is 3 times a year, usually, I came out of that ceremony and I said, how do I integrate and implement this into my life and my day-to-day life without the medicine? And I created a practice called God Goggles, where I started with like 30 minutes, and I'd say, okay, today is Wednesday. I'm going to spend 30 minutes with God goggles on, and everything I see, I'm going to see the face of God in it. I'm going to allow that to penetrate and permeate my entire beingness, and I'm going to allow it to just pour over me and as me. And so I'd spend 30 minutes, and then the next time, a month or 2 later, I'd say, all right, we're going to extend this. Let's go for 1 hour and 30 minutes. Right? And I was working up to it just like you do with meditation and anything else. I was crawling on my way to walking, on my way to running, on my way to sprinting. And so what's happened is now, daily, this is what
it's more familiar.
It's just where I live from. That through me space is like, I'm crystal clear that God is using me, that Spirit is using me, that my higher self, my guides, whatever you want to call it, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, whatever that is, whatever name you have for it, which is really just the unnameable, the ineffable, whatever that is, I know without a shadow of a doubt that it is asking of me to continue to step forward and give my gifts from the overflow. And so,
boom.
Yes. The game, though, it gets amazing when you can have that happen in the minutia, right? Everybody wants to give from the overflow when it's
What's
pretty.
the minutia?
So that means like the like when you're taking a shit. That means like, can you give
the
from
ugly.
The overflow? Yeah. Can you get, or just the mundane, I'm doing my taxes. Oh, I'm writing an email. Can you see God in the email? Like in the clicking of the keys? Can you allow like that, like orgasmic like thing to hit you with just typing in the email? Like that is when, to me, this is where you go into that mastery level. When it's not just the moments when I'm on the stage, it's every moment.
Yes.
I can paint like Picasso what I want to experience. Yes.
So one thing that so from an observation perspective, looking at you and watching the journey and having you just explain that, one thing that you do really well in the spiritual community, personal development community, is go through the process of behavioral change, which isn't it's instantly change, instantly making a decision to change, but then going through the process of that really uncomfortable, unknown, like the grueling stages of changing a habit, where it goes from unconscious incompetence. But then, like, let's say you do a ceremony, people think the ceremony is the transformation. The ceremony is the window that then opens up the opportunity to become consciously incompetent. Then you've got to go through the process, which is such an active, dynamic process of constantly checking in from unconscious incompetence, so conscious incompetence to conscious competence, and then it becomes more embodied, which is where you are now in terms of your ability to allow God to flow through you. But I really want to hone that point, because there's so many people that come to me just confused as to why their life won't change. But it's that you're really a master of doing the work, and I just want to honor that and also highlight it as an important
what's funny is even this shirt is a representation of that. Like Seinfeld, to me, was one of those shows that was it was about nothing. And yet that's what made Seinfeld magical, was that it was like they would take the stupidest thing and make a whole episode about this stupid thing. And, such is life. And yet none of it was stupid, because everything is valuable and beautiful and interesting if we say so. In the Bible, it says, it's done unto you as you believe. What most people don't really pay attention to is the as. The as is an active verb. It's done unto me. And I'll give you an example. Let's say God, Spirit, is an electrical socket. We all believe in electricity even though we don't understand it and we can't necessarily hook it up ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Spirit, in the manifestation process, in the just living your best life process, says, it's done unto you as you believe. Another way of saying is your thoughts become things and you create your own reality. Okay? So it exists. Spirit says, you can plug up an iPhone or you can plug up a fucking city. Both of those are possible. The power, the law remains. The law is the law is the law. Electricity is. If I plug up the iPhone, I'll charge that because it's done unto you as you believe. So if your beliefs if your as is as big as this iPhone, then that's what you'll get. If your beliefs are as big as a city, then that's what you'll get. So Hitler and Gandhi and Jesus and every other person who we've put on a pedestal or called an enemy all use the same power, the same electricity. They all plugged up to the same thing. They understood the principle, which is there is no big or small. There is no real duality. God doesn't know the distinction between an ant and an elephant. All of it's God. And so our opportunity is, how do I want to plug up to this thing? Because the principle, the law is always going to be there.
So, yeah, epic. Really fucking awesome. So for you, what excites you the most? Like what gets you out of bed? When do you feel most inspired? And when do you feel least inspired?
Most inspired is, so this will feel like a tangent, but it's not. I was talking to a group because I coach coaches behind the scenes, and I have this other group called Amplify, which is about raising your vibration and manifestation. I was talking to both of them yesterday, 2 different Zooms, but this subject came up, and I just want to put it in the space because it was so important and it hit home for a lot of people. And it's the distinction between chasing dreams and chasing alignment, right? A lot of people are chasing their dreams, but in my opinion, the best thing you could do is chase alignment, because alignment will move you towards and help you become the space for your calling. A calling is very different than a dream. Most dreams are actually fantasies. Most people have a dream of something they fucking suck at. They're not actually, like, your mom told you you're good at that thing, but your mom was lying because she loves you so much that she just kept saying it. And she's saying, follow your dream. Like, yes, and what would be more, I'll say, not more, what would be probably, would feel better is if people began to chase alignment, which is essentially just saying, like, how do I fill my cup in such a way that I become so receptive that I can hear and see with the eye behind the eye what is actually being asked of me. So to answer your question, what lights me up is that I'm living my calling. This is not a dream. This is not a like, hey, like, I didn't want to do this. I was an actor and a model, and I was on Entourage and a bunch of commercials and a bunch of little TV shows in the US and all of these things. And I was headed towards one path. And just to go back a little bit, you were talking about change. Change is very different than transformation. I was an actor and I changed to also being a model. That's change. When I went from that to what I'm currently doing, that's transformation. That's an entire different lane and plane and playing field. I can change my hair, but still have the same habits and nothing happen, right? And so living in such alignment for now, and I want everybody to hear the words for now, ... for now. Because I'm not assuming that I know what Spirit is going to want to do with me 3 months from now, let alone 3 years, let alone 30 years. What I'm saying is what gets me excited and what gets me out of bed is I personally feel in my heart of hearts, in the deepest parts of my soul, that I am living my calling right now. And that is exciting because I know that I'm being a gift and helping humanity with the way that the unique way that I was called here to do it. And everybody, self included, has that happening. The question is can they actually hear it? Are they actually listening? You know, because there's a lot of white noise. There's a lot of, what are you going to be when you grow up? Unconscious thinking, where they trying to get to the thing they're going to be, which, oh, that means that I'm living my purpose. No, we all have one purpose. That's to reflect and reveal the cosmos in a way in which it never has been before. That's the only purpose we have, is evolution, is to be the living embodiment of God's love. Now we have different missions, we have different visions. You have a different vision than I do. They're headed down a similar path. They're maybe in the same direction, but they're not the same thing. And your vision and your mission will change on a need-to-know basis.
So when you get aligned and you're actually doing God's work through the fact that you're touching people or you're living your life in the way that you were destined to live, when you're in that space, would you say therefore you're on a path in Vedic wisdom known as Kriya, which is non-binding action, versus karmic, which is like you're going off path based upon being like making changes and intellectually trying to figure out what's right, and you're on that, and that comes with consequences on the way of journey to getting back to that path? Would you say that it's when you're on the path that you can truly be in a space of constant transformation, because you're constantly, you've got it's easier, even though it's not easy, to take the next step because you're doing it in a way that you're meant to do it, that fits who you are. Would you say that you transform when you're on the path, and when you're off the path, you can learn and change and gain awareness, but ultimately you're not on the super highway of transformation?
Yeah, I think I can align with that to a degree. Here's what my opinion. It's opinion. I'm just another man. My opinion is that all roads lead to the same place. All of them. And that's now, because we've created this thing called time to help track the now. And there's no way to do it wrong. And I believe that right is the most dangerous drug on the planet. There's nothing that kills people more than, and it robs people of their lives and their joy than being right. I know for myself, for many years, I had so much guilt and shame around sex and sexuality and the urge to merge, because I was 12 or 13 and I wanted to have sex. I wanted to kiss a girl. And because I was raised in a religion that told me that I was a sinner and I was bad if I thought any of those things, and my biology was terrible because it wanted this thing, then I walked around, and even when I did have sex, it was filled with so much, I felt like Jesus was watching and judging me and all of these things. And so, it's done unto you as you believe. So I was believing that I was a sinner and I was shameful and I was bad and I was terrible. And so I was getting more of that until my body actually began to break down. I had a heart condition. I had a skin disease that they couldn't figure out how to cure. And they finally came up with this term, photodermitis, which basically just means you're allergic to the sun. And all of those things came out of me being so deeply out of integrity with the truth of my being. And so, was I transforming? Yes. Was I also changing even when I was out of alignment? Yes. Both of those were happening. However, it feels better. Feels better to be on the path. All roads lead to the same place. In Native American tradition, they call it the red road and the black road. The red road is more narrow. It's harder to travel through, because it's uncommon and it's always shifting and changing. The black road is where everybody goes. The black road is where, porn and jacking off and spiritual bypassing and hierarchical, all of that stuff. Not just even the big stuff, like the judging of their neighbors, the thinking I'm better because I read Deepak Chopra, like all of that stuff is on the black road. The red road is a whole different ball game, man. Spiritual ego is some of the most dangerous egos there are out here. People think that they're better because they're doing workshops. Get the fuck out of here. Until you're actually living that, until you can actually go back from Bali and you're fucking trance dancing and actually go to North Dakota and have a conversation with your sister who you haven't talked to in 10 years until you can do that? Nope.
That's a little glimpse of the bridge experience. So if you have the courage to show up there, you will transform. That's for sure. It's a funny space. It's a funny world. Oh gosh.
It is.
So what I'm hearing is don't shame any path. You're on the path no matter what. And the shame is the trap. Yeah. Because that's been my experience as well, having extremely low self-worth on my journey and building it piece by piece over time. And yeah, still being on that journey of going in and figure like, what's the next thing that's my stretch to lean into and when do I surrender? And my favorite word on the planet is discernment. Because for me, that gives me permission to show up differently in every situation and lean into what's required. Whereas my control center, my ego is addicted to needing to know, be right, be perfect, be on the, just that intellectual mastery, which is just not a very solid experience of life. It's not a very enjoyable experience.
That's powerful, man. That's powerful. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's an amazing word. And I would agree. I'm constantly discerning what's needed, what's necessary. And even if I know what's needed and necessary, sometimes I just want to be a brat. I just want to be a dick sometimes. And so I just allow myself to have that experience as well. And not need to be perfect or right. Because, you know, I can make the right decision, but really what I'm doing there is bypassing what's true for me in the moment. And all that's going to do is get stored in my body. And so there is no right and wrong. And I mean that at the most extreme levels. There is no right and wrong in spirit. There's right and wrong in Preston's personality. I think that sex trafficking and hurting little kids and abusing anybody in any way is terrible, but that's my personality. You know, when we go beyond personality and go into like quantum physics and things of that nature, there's no right, there's no wrong.
It's kind of like the internet. It's just ones and zeros, and what you see on the screen is a unique pattern of the ones and zeros, which might be Pornhub, or it might be Google, or it might be prestonsmiles.com.
Yep.
But it's just ones and zeros at the end of the day. So discern, like if we just pause the idea of discernment so that I can ask this question and get some tangible responses on a daily basis and a weekly basis, what are the practices that at the moment are most beneficial for you? Can you hear me? Yeah. What are the practices that are most beneficial for you to help yourself tap more into the through me, as me, versus the quote unquote suffering victim modes? Like, what do you do to get yourself aligned, empowered, and that more enjoyable experience of life?
Yeah. So one of the best things anybody could do for themselves, and I do for myself, is ask powerful questions. You know, I don't stop at, and I don't stop at the answer. Right? So most people ask a question, they get an answer from Google, from God, and they stop there. Well, when the answer comes through, I also question that.
Why questions?
I
like to ask why questions to understand something more, or just like look at it from a different perspective. But then if it gets too esoteric, I ask myself, so what?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, cool. Yeah. So God is flowing through us at all times. So what?
Yeah.
Well, get out of your head and just do the Facebook Live instead of sitting around and thinking.
There we go. Yeah. I think I'll often ask myself, is that actually truth? Is that a capital T truth or a lowercase t? Because a lot of stuff that passes through through my head isn't actually like a capital T truth. It's just someone else's tiny little T truth, or it's some past experience that I'm trying to now plaster all over the now moment or the future. And so even just a pattern interrupt of like, is that really true? Internally will change everything. So that's one. Number two, I spend time in nature. I get out. I put my feet in the grass. I close my eyes. I listen. I allow. I go surfing. I run. I jump off of shit. I bike. I skateboard. I play with my children, and allow myself to remember the aspects of little Preston that are still currently here. And that's what I did when I was 8, and I felt free, you know? And
would you say that's little Preston, or because it is your reality now? So it's also big Preston, right?
Oh, for sure. For
'Cause
sure.
I climb trees and stuff, and I feel like I don't want to view it just as through the lens of I'm connecting with my inner child.
No, of course not.
Actual adult Ryan in a society that would say that's a bit, adults you don't see adult. I've never seen an adult climb a tree ever.
Yeah.
I climb trees every day. So, and adult Ryan likes climbing trees.
Yep. No, 100%. For me, it's that mention was even for those who are looking to find what that is for them. So I mentioned that, just placing it in the space. So for those of you who are listening saying, well, I don't know what mine is. Well, all you have to do is scan what lit you up as a child that you turned your back on, that people said, oh, that's immature, that people said, oh, that's stupid, right? And go play, go find out. I used to ride bikes everywhere. And then for many years, I didn't ride bikes. And so when I became back to like, well, what's my truth? What feels good? Well, I don't know what feels good because I haven't done anything in years. Okay, fantastic. Let's rewind back, because success leaves clues. Oh yeah, you used to really love riding a bike and skateboarding. How about you go buy one or rent one, right? That's to me is one of the most powerful exercises anybody could do. Is like, let me go try this on again. Let me see what this feels like now. Right?
Yeah, so powerful. I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yep.
So there's something that I've been wanting to ask for the last kind of 20 minutes that I feel is another asset in the terms of the way that you carry yourself through life. And that is, we kind of touched on it, but the radical authenticity. I want to know what goes through your mind when you say, well, sometimes I'm in capital T truth of what I want to express. Sometimes it's just the information that's swirling around in my mind that's been given to me by society and whatever, or it's just Preston's personality, but you still give space for it. So, and you ask yourself questions, but I see that you tee off from lower T truth and like little P Preston regularly. And I love it. I think it's the most radically authentic thing that I see. So what goes through your mind when you get ticked off and you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to rant on it? Are you saying like, I'm going to use it in whatever way it comes through? Do you just have a rule with yourself? Like, if it's there, I go with it.
Yeah. If it's there and it remains there for longer than an hour, then I'll give it back to the people. Sometimes I'll give it back to them from the space of teaching, which is most of the time. And then sometimes just like, yo, I'm going to use this platform just to throw some shit in the space. And the reason why I do that and honor all of it is because I know that everything is a gift. Everything. Every word, every gesture, every tree, everything that exists on this planet is a gift. And it's always an invitation in some form or fashion. Like, I have a group right now in Amplify. I have them saying no to 10 things in the next 24 hours, just so they give the gift of somebody else to be creative, right? My wife said no to me as far as me, or said yes to herself and no to washing the clothes. And so what she's given me is an opportunity for me now to wash the clothes, because she doesn't want to wash anymore. So that was a gift from her, right?
I can only even imagine the sort of stuff that you guys get into with your chats, with your arguments. Oh so my gosh, I wish I could just witness. You should just go live every time you have an argument.
It's so good. It's literally like TV. We have some actual US based production companies wanting to do a TV show around us. So that's happening now, actually.
Congratulations. That's going to be very entertaining.
Yep. Oh man, too good.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for jumping on today. This has been absolutely awesome. And I'd love to let you finish off with a message that you really want people to leave from the podcast today with. But before we wrap up with that, I just wanted to take some time to honor you for being such an authentic leader. I know it's been the topic of conversation for the live today, but you really do show up as Preston Smiles. And it's amazing. It's inspiring. And I love it. And yeah, I just want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on today.
That means a lot, man. And yeah, to anybody out there suffering or struggling or dealing with anxiety or just having a sort of a rough couple hours or couple minutes that seems like it's a couple years, I just want to remind you that what you appreciate appreciates. What you celebrate in yourself and others gets repeated. So if you want to have a different experience, begin to celebrate and appreciate and notice all the ways in which you are actually having a different experience. Very often we can get caught in the illusion and the virus of the mind that we are having a bad day or a bad year or we're stuck. Well, in actual capital R reality, nothing is ever stuck. It's always moving, shifting, and changing. We are vibrational beings. And so the stuckness is really just a virus of the mind, and you can always run some malware and get rid of that, because, and this is what I really want to allow all of us to sit in as I get off of here. Spirit, God, Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, Allah, can only do for us what it can do through us. And so we become the vessel, the channel, the space for God, Spirit, Buddha, Krishna, Jesus, Allah, to work its magic. And so your job is to raise your vibration. Your job is to speak what you seek until you see what you said. Your job is to prophesy about who and what you really are. Your job is to see the beauty and the magic that's happening all around you and then reflect it and go, oof, if it's happening there, it must be happening here. I'll leave you with that.
Boomtown.
Yes,
so for anyone that doesn't follow you at this point, what's your Insta handle? Where's the best place to follow you?
Yeah, at Preston Smiles on everything. So YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. I don't play in Twitter, but those places.
Where's the most potent place for them to?
Probably Instagram or YouTube.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
And so I know for me, when I do an interview, it always means the world to get some feedback or mention a way that it touched them and how it was meaningful for them. So if you head over to @PrestonSmiles on Insta, just send him a message and say, well, what the podcast meant for you. It's always really nice to get those messages. So thanks again, man. Really loved this interview. Really appreciate you coming on.
For sure.